Hello and welcome back to another episode of me trying to improve at Counter-Strike, all in the pursuit of becoming a pro player. This week I'm going to be getting back to focusing on CS and back to improving. And what better way to improve than by learning from the best in the game right now? And I'm not talking about donk. First person I'm talking about is kyousuke. Anyway, Falcon's newest addition, a player who is seen as probably the next biggest star by not only the community, but also other pros, and also a player like donk that absolutely dominates FACEIT.
Flash will delay them further, swinging into it, comfortable with the first, and a double kill. Kersey has the bomb, hesitant to commit, and they do so. Nice headshot back from the Frenchman, but it's all kyousuke.
And the second player is ropz, the best anchor and active lurk in the game, on the best team in the world, Vitality.
They can win this. Kill ropz quick. Flash, they team flash. ropz, they can't win this. They cannot win this.
I don't think anyone here can deny that both these players are at the top of their game. Also play CS differently in certain aspects, but also have overlapping tendencies. So this week, I'm going to find out what those tendencies are so I can implement them into my own training and my own gameplay, not only allowing me to dominate more gunfights, but also win more games on my road to pro.
Nice!
So the main aspects and tendencies I'll be looking to learn from these players this week is how to improve my aim and my mechanics. How do they keep sharp and train for their games? How do they peek into angles and fights to maintain the advantage? And how do they dominate their gunfights and convert these so consistently into multi-kills? So firstly, how do they train? Well, I would say the biggest difference that is quite easy to spot straight up is that kyousuke plays a lot of FACEIT PUGS, very similar to donk. However, ropz does not. In a recent roundtable by ESL, ropz said that he does not play FACEIT at all and has not since he joined FaZe.
You're not playing a lot of FACEIT, are you?
I don't play FACEIT.
At all?
No.
What do you play?
TM mostly. I don't know, I just don't find it enjoyable for myself.
Just from this comparison, I can see I'm far more on the ropz side of things. However, I do need to be a more hybrid player and more flexible in my role. I've become much more aggressive as time's gone on, which if you talk to my teammates, I think they will agree. So I need to learn the different play styles, different positions in order to really have the biggest impact on the game I can. So to do this, to keep learning the passive from the aggressive and try new things and new positions, I will continue to play FACEIT. And if you're like me, I think this will be important for our own growth. I know a few of my mates are like me, so we both need to get on board with this. So with the difference between kyousuke and ropz being deathmatch for ropz or FACEIT for kyousuke, how does that really translate into their gameplay? How do they continuously dominate their gunfights and convert those into multi-kills so regularly? Is there a difference to how they peak angles and take their fights? The first aspect I want to talk about, and seems to be across the board with every player at the moment, is both these players do not stop moving. I think this must be to do with how everyone is peaking in the new CS2. So it definitely makes sense to keep up that AD spam that not only makes you hard to hit when you get peaked, but also it keeps you fluid for when you need to become the peaker. So what I mean by that is they are the ones who swing into fights or swing into angles rather than necessarily waiting for someone to come and swing into them. And finally, the next thing that seems to be constantly talked about by other players, but also is very noticeable in kyousuke's play, is as soon as these players get contact, they counter strafe and they look to tap the crouch button, not hold it. I hold the crouch button, that is an adjustment I need to make. This makes them hard to hit by changing the height of their head. So the takeaway from just their movement side of things and to improve our own movement is to make ourselves harder to hit. So we need to keep more active, both in holding angles and in countering aggression, and practice and implement the duck method on contact. The second aspect of their aim I want to comment on is that both these players pre-aim before their fights, and this partnered with their incredible crosshair placement just makes them unstoppable and super consistent. This is already something that I'm actively working on with pre-fire and angle trainer on refrag, but it is a great reminder of the importance of it. This method of clearing angles or preparing for peaks not only gives them the advantage in the fight, but also makes their fights more consistent and therefore makes them more impactful across multiple games. So for my and maybe your own development, we need to continue practicing and training this skill and maybe even spend more time prioritizing it. And the third and final point I want to touch on, which was greatly brought up by the refrag video here, and it's something that I know I don't do enough of, and I don't know if a lot of players know about, but I believe it is something that a lot of top players are doing, and that's player visualization. This is the process of actively visualizing that a player is going to be in the position you pre-aim and you peek into, not just when you know they are are there. This means that rather than reacting to the player being there, you are instead reacting to the fact they're not there. And I know for a fact I don't do this enough. And I know that I don't do this enough because I start to lose focus in my peaks. I'm just not thinking at all, and eventually losing out on easier kills. So to quickly recap what I've learned and also what I'll be implementing into my own gameplay is firstly, my movement, keep moving, be the peaker, not the peaky. Secondly, we are looking at being more focused on our pre-aim and crosshair placement, improving those through training. So whether that is through refrag or just practicing it in my games, really focusing on not shift peeking into angles and fully swinging. And third and finally, we're going to be really thinking about our player visualization in our peaks, making sure that we are expecting players at each angle and not just clearing lazily. So let me know what you think of those three, whether you agree with me, and please, if there is something you think I've missed or players you think I should look at next, then let me know in the comments below. So how does this compare to my own aim and mechanics training at the moment? Well, I still follow the same routine and tasks, but with some slight changes that I've implemented from my learnings this week, but also from some advice I'd gotten from some better players than me. My warm-up routine is still 100 aimbox kills, then onto 100 fast aim reflex kills, and 15 minutes of refrag coach. However, the slight change that I've made to the 100 fast reflex kills is that rather than tracking the bots while I'm stationary, I now make sure I keep moving while tracking and then counter strafing for the kill. Now to the active training part. If I am playing a day of CS, so whether that's with my team or pugging, I end my evening with a mini god aim labs routine to focus on a specific aspect of my aim. And for the days that I don't play CS, I make sure I jump on to play some deathmatch for at least 30 minutes. Right, now we have our aim and mechanics goals for this week. So let's take a look at how my health and running training is getting on before we dive into how the team did this week. The first thing to say is I'm back to running. Well, back to running 5 kilometers.
God, that's grim.
My running has taken a bit of a back seat while I had all my social duties. And in this time, my sister went and messed up her ankle. And so the half marathon has been pushed back to next year. Good for me. So to replace the half marathon training, which I'm clearly not doing, I'm going to push myself to improve my 5 kilometer time. So with my previous PB of being a sub 30 minute back in 2022, I think we can set my new first goal at a sub 30 to get us back on track. And then from there, who knows, maybe we'll push for a sub 27, 26, 25 before Christmas. On the health and diet side of things, I have actively and actually improved my diet. I don't have as many takeaways, which is fantastic. And as of the end of last week, I have started preparing my meals. And I did record my whole process and advice for meal prepping. If you are interested in that, because I wasn't sure people would be that interested in sort of a vlog style thing of that, please let me know in the comments below and I can share that next week. Otherwise, here's a quick summary of what I made and what I'll be eating for the next month or so. For breakfast, I made overnight oats. This is so that I can either eat it in the morning actually for breakfast or save it as a snack later in the day. And the total of that sits around 400 calories. For lunch, I made baked potatoes with a tuna, sweet corn and pea slop. Something that fills you up. I've eaten for 4 months in a row before and sits just below 500 calories. However, for dinner, my partner and I use this time in the evening as some quality time together and we are able to prepare something quite tasty. However, this may have to change slightly if I'm finding myself becoming sluggish after the meal because my matches are in the evening and after dinner and I need to be on top form for those. And finally, snacks are a super hard thing for me. I am a lover of snacks. I eat anything and everything that's in my sight or that I know exists, and therefore they are my downfall. So for the time being, I'm just looking and eating at fruit. I say looking at, I'm just eating fruit and buying fruit. But if you have any ideas, please leave them in the comments. Right, let's dive into how ESEA, UKIC and pugging went this week. This week really was a rough one for me and the team, to be honest. We had a bit of an issue in terms of we had to use a stand-in for the week. We haven't pracked in a long time, and this has all led to some pretty rough games. So for our first ESEA game of the week, we kind of buckled mentally, to be honest. We were too eager to imprint ourselves in the game. We were overcomplicating the really simple stuff. We just weren't playing how we usually do.
Close. Dead.
Cave. Cave and ramp.
Ramp. Cave and ramp. Cave.
Cave last.
Right side. I should have killed Cave, man.
Yeah, I just went too early.
But we did get the next UKIC win, which was great. We won that in a dominant fashion.
Guys, we ran a riot. We ran a riot.
But that's kind of to be expected when you look at the visual skill difference between our two teams, and that would lead into some in-game confidence and maybe some plays we wouldn't usually make.
CC. Nice, yeah, bomb at him.
That's you towards con.
Dead one.
Oh,
Con dead.
Nice!
And then on Wednesday for our next ESEA game was really not a good showing. If you watched it on the stream, I do apologize for how tilted I was getting, but it was a tough game to play and it probably was even tougher watch. We had a bit of a conversation afterwards. It was a little bit weird and a little bit fraught. And to be honest, when you're playing with a sub, especially on a map like Nuke, everything's going to fill out of kilter, especially if things aren't working. And so we're 1 for 5 on ESEA, which is really not a good start and really not where I want to be. But we started the season with 2 or 3 games of technical issues, which gave us losses. And then for UKIC, we got a free win. That is a blessing because that team looked like a very difficult team to beat, but it does put us 3-1 in the UKIC. So at least that is going well. On the other side of things, on Tuesday, we had the new update, big update. We had some new animations brought in, which I kind of really like, to be honest. I'm all for improvement of the game. If that's implementing a new animations engine that needs to come onto CS, then all for that. And on the pugging side of things, well, I got up to and above 2.6k, so that was fantastic. I think that shows evidence of improvement, which is awesome. I'm playing well. And then I go and play on Friday and lose 3 games in a row and got back into 2.5. Not ideal, but with Elo, it's ebbs and flows. You just got to keep moving forward and see where you can get to. Anyway, to not end on a somber note, really appreciate everyone who's been subscribing. Make sure you do before you leave. I'm really pleased with how the streams are going. For everyone who's involved, super appreciated. Make sure you check those out and do them live here or over at Twitch. And we've learned a lot from those 2 players this week. We've learned what we need to do in our training and therefore how to change our gameplay to be more effective, to have more impact, so that we come out of this season and into the next one even stronger. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Peace.